room upstairs that we have.
Oh, oh,
But
oh.
unfortunately, the other speakers don't know.
Yeah, Scott's great.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, he was awesome.
Okay,
I learned things. Oh wait, you let me hear, right?
Either way.
Either way.
Just feet straight ahead. Here.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, this
Oh,
will
I
be good.
see.
Yeah. And with both angles, we'll get it good.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah. So Adam, hard time saying your last name, and I know that in your signature line, apparently you tell people how to pronounce your last name.
Yes.
But please introduce yourself and let us know about your organization that's doing great work out there.
Well, thank you. So it's Adam Andrzejweski. Tough last name. It's Polish. I'm 50% Polish. I say 51% Polish. But the other side of the family, on my maternal side, goes back to 1695. In America before it was a country. So I've got two great stories. The immigrant story with my grandparents from Poland, and then the generational story on my mother's side of the Norris family. My middle name is Norris. So I founded OpenTheBooks.com because we believe transparency is transformation. And transparency revolutionizes United States public policy and politics.
Absolutely.
And not enough had been done in the space. But what most people don't understand is it's a constitutional charge. It goes back to Article 1, Section 9 of the United States Constitution, which states that a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. And so now it's the internet age, and we just think there's a clear interpretation. Post every dime online in real time, open the books. So that's what we do.
And we have something called Transparent California.
Yeah.
That's where we can see how government is spending the money. Like, for example, salaries for administrators in schools and all of that. But how does that? Are you doing something similar to that, or is it yours national in scope? Tell us a little more.
So ours, Transparent California, does a really nice job. And what we've done is we have done that writ large across the entire country.
Got it.
So it's federal, it's state, it's local. It's not only payroll information, but it's also vendor checkbook spending. Now in California, we don't have the checkbook because we're suing right now, active litigation against the comptroller, Betty Yee, who has refused to provide a copy of the line-by-line vendor payments in the state of California.
Well, she's in her sex scandal too.
No, that is a different one. That's Fiona Ma.
So we actually have a candidate right now running, Laney Chen.
Yes.
Who that is his only issue.
Impossible to win. So kudos to him that he's taken up the issue of transparency and is driving it as his sole reason to run for office.
2022 might be just a great year for him. So even if the rest of the offices go Democrat, it'll be interesting to see if you make that case. So no, I love what you're doing, and you cited some very powerful statistics about the pullout from Afghanistan.
Right.
So I'd love for you to kind of recap that and also maybe add a little, because I think it's fascinating how much money was left behind there.
Right. So it's staggering the costs of the U.S. military gear left behind in Afghanistan. So our auditors immediately, when the Taliban was overrunning Afghanistan, we wanted to answer the question: how much military gear provided by U.S. taxpayers had been given to the country and would potentially be left behind? So it was, we all saw the Black Hawk helicopter being flown around by the Taliban and on the tarmac. And each Black Hawk helicopter is $21.3 million on average. We had over 200 airplanes that we had delivered to the Afghan National Security Forces. We, as U.S. taxpayers, had stood up a 7,500-member Afghan Air Force. But obviously, nothing was sustainable. When the Taliban was on the march, early on, the Air Force, which was supposed to be keeping them in check, the 44 pilots loaded up their U.S.-provided aircraft with 500 of their friends and family and flew them out of the country. So, we wanted to know just in full how much gear and equipment and training that we had provided. And we provided the number. We broke national and international news on it. And it was slightly less than $83 billion, $82.9 billion over a 20-year period. And to the small backward nation, at the end of the day, nothing militarily, economically, with elections, nothing sustainable was built in Afghanistan, quite obviously.
So pretty much that 83 billion you said is waste.
It's all waste.
Were you guys the only ones that calculated that? Because that was the circulating number.
Right.
And that was all of you
Yes,
guys.
that was us.
So nobody else was out there actually doing the calculations.
Right. Yeah,
amazing.
we broke that
So
right
it
out of the
didn't
blocks
exist.
using our data that we had proactively
Yeah.
captured ahead of time, and then also government audit reports. And so we put the cost to the number.
That's amazing.
Yeah, even the Washington Post, when they fact-checked politicians
it said that.
talking about the equipment left behind, they were linking to our website where we had done the analysis.
Thank you for spreading the truth, like you said, and that's the most important thing.
Now, it did come with a cost. So we launched this in my column at Forbes, and within a couple of hours of launch, the Biden administration State Department gave guidance to the Government Accountability Office and the Special Inspector General for Afghan Reconstruction to rip down the audit reports that our reporting was based on. However, we had proactively downloaded those audit reports. They erased them from the internet almost immediately.
Wow.
We have proactively downloaded those reports. We reposted them with our branding. And so when the Washington Post, for instance, linked to that report, they were linking to our website, which was the only spot on the internet where those
It had
government
it,
audits
yeah.
existed.
Because they removed it.
That's
so they
right.
have something to hide. That's why they're not being transparent.
That's right.
And there's probably a shame factor because they spend our taxpayer money like it's nothing.
Well, it's a target-rich environment, to use military terms, about waste, fraud, corruption, and taxpayer abuse right now. And at OpenTheBooks.com, we are on a war footing, and we're serious about shining a white-hot spotlight on all of it, the entire government complex.
Thank you for auditing that. So besides the military, are there other spots where you've been appalled, like this $83 billion number is an appalling number? Are there other areas? Because I'm thinking of California, and I'm thinking about all the wasted money on education.
Right. Well, in
Somebody
California, we're
yesterday
suing.
said only 1% of education dollars actually go to pay teachers.
Yes.
Which is wild because they're always saying like, oh, teachers need to get paid more. Teachers need to get paid more.
And I have friends
But
that
they're
are
only
teachers
1%.
that have to go get supplies out of their own
Oh, they all
dime,
have to.
which is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Parents
Yeah.
donate money for teachers to buy
Yes.
notebooks.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So quite frankly, we can't follow the money in the state of California, and here's why. So we file 40,000 Freedom of Information Act requests per year. We have all federal spending since the year 2001. 49 out of 50 state checkbooks, the line-by-line spending, and California is the lone holdout. And we're suing California Comptroller Betty Yee right now, active litigation. We just wrapped up summary judgment arguments in a Sacramento Circuit Court, and we're waiting for the judge's order. The judge has been thoughtful and diligent. We think he's seen through the very weak legal arguments that the comptroller is putting forth. Betty Yee, Comptroller of California, has not disclosed and refuses to disclose even a single expenditure from last year, and she admits to paying 50 million bills. Her words, she rejected our request, saying, incredibly, that she can't, quote unquote, locate any of the 50 million bills she paid last year.
Wow.
More than 30,000 grants.
That's
Well,
right.
and here's
This
her argument in court.
Okay.
She's set up a balancing test. And this is the specific language in front of the judge. They have argued, this is a pretty incredible argument, that the public interest served by not disclosing the line-by-line California checkbook to the people clearly outweighs the public interest in disclosure. They're basically telling you, go away, you pesky citizen. We know better than you, and we are going to keep it hidden for your own benefit. And we fundamentally reject that.
I actually remember that being in the news.
Yeah. So
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of news has covered this so far.
No.
Yeah.
But this
I'm
is
gonna
an
cover-
historic lawsuit.
I make a promise to you that I'm going to write up an article to expose Betty Yee's ridiculousness here.
Great.
So let's also talk offline after this because I want to make sure that I have the current info. Now, when's the next court hearing on this?
We're waiting for the judge to come in with the order.
Okay.
Right.
Keep me posted on that because once that
It's
happens,
a big news story, either way.
yes,
You know, if he takes the comptroller's position, it's a big news story.
exactly.
We feel that we're going to get a positive order and begin the process of opening the books in
Because it just
California.
makes too much sense.
Well, and it's not our first rodeo either. So back in 2012, we sued the Republican comptroller in Illinois,
Oh.
who claimed that the state, quote unquote, doesn't have a magical checkbook. And we reminded her the state doesn't have magical taxpayers either. And we won that. And within 9 months, we opened up 7 years worth of line-by-line spending.
Wow.
And then in 2018, we sued the Republican state auditor in Wyoming.
Oh.
Her name was Cynthia Cloud, who claimed that it would take years and years to produce a single year of state spending.
For a state with 500,000 people
Yes.
or whatever it is, that is absolutely ridiculous.
Yes, and it was because the new state auditor came in, Christy Racinas, and within her first 30 days on the job, she opened up 6 years worth of line-by-line spending. So it is time to open the books in the state of California.
So 49 out of 50 states have.
California is the lone holdout. It's
It's
embarrassing. The state of Silicon
The-
Valley.
and the biggest state too.
Yes.
In the union. So there's a lot of money, like you said, 50 million.
Well, they spent about $320 billion last year. And here's why national taxpayers should be interested in this suit. Because we all put in about a third of that money. About a third of the money came from outside of California. It came through Washington, D.C., through Congress, back to California.
So you're focused really on the spending side of things, right? That's
On the
kind
fiscal
of,
side.
Oh, yes. So yeah, because for the audience that doesn't know, treasurer is money in, comptroller is money out.
Yep.
So your focus is on the 50 controllers around the country and making sure that they're behaving good and not badly like in California.
And I like that this is like both sides.
It is.
I mean, you're not just going after blue
No,
states.
right.
It's everybody. Everybody is
That's
equally.
right.
Because Republicans behave badly too,
Oh, yeah.
especially in the
They're
ones
terrible at it.
Yeah, we're completely nonpartisan. So
That's awesome.
we've done co-investigations with the New York Times. For example, when Mayor Bill de Blasio announced for President of the United States, our co-investigation with the New York Times was on the front page of the paper and led the masthead on their website with the title, "The Rats Are Taking Over New York City." Because we mapped every single citizen rat complaint to the 311 line and proved that there was more rat sightings than ever, and de Blasio's $36 million rat extermination campaign was a gross failure. The rats had outfoxed the New York City bureaucrats.
Imagine that. Wow.
We, CNBC, their show American Greed, when they did the con in Congress, I'm on tape for that hour segment about 6 different times talking about how Congress writes the rules are lax, and it is maybe legal behavior, but certainly it's unethical stuff.
Absolutely.
We're able to partner with USA Today on co-investigations, and so we've got a very good national brand that cuts across
Yes.
traditional lines in terms of left and right.
So I'm really curious about other instances of just wanton waste. Do you have any that come to mind that really?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the biggest stories of 2021, besides the staggering cost of U.S. military gear left behind in Afghanistan,
Yes.
was our investigation published in January on the #1 most highly compensated federal employee, which just happens to be Dr. Anthony Fauci. And when we launched this story, many people had questions. They're like, how does a director of a sub-agency out-earn the President of the United States, 4-star generals of the United States military with millions of men and women in their command, and 4.3 million federal employees?
How much does he
And
pay?
so this year, so for the past 2 years, he's been #1. So in 2019, he made $417,000, and this year he made $434,000.
Wow.
What many people don't know is that his wife also makes a lot of money at the National Institutes of Health, and she's actually the top ethics czar at the NIH. So if Fauci's greenlighting gain-of-function experiments, she's approving that. That's his wife. She makes more than Nancy Pelosi makes. Pelosi makes $223,500 as Speaker of the House. Anthony Fauci's wife, as the ethics czar over at NIH, makes I think she makes $232,000. So when we found that Fauci was #1, we had questions. So we filed additional Freedom of Information Act requests for his job contract with all amendments, changes, and addendums. His conflict of interest statements, his financial disclosures, his job description, and the royalties. Whether or not he was receiving royalties from, for example, pharmaceutical companies, because that could be a potential conflict of interest during the pandemic. And the
Well,
National
even
Institutes of
doctors
Health.
and nurses aren't even allowed to accept gifts anymore from pharmaceutical companies.
Well, they are at the National Institutes of Health. And so we want a copy of that record. And of course, they didn't provide it. And it went 10 months. And we got serious about enforcing transparency law. I wrote to Fauci directly. He was aware of our Freedom of Information Act request, did nothing about it. And so we sued him. We partnered with the Legal Eagles Judicial Watch, and we sued him last month in federal court. So we expect to get that record shortly.
Keep me posted on that too.
It's a big story.
Absolutely great. And then any other instances maybe that's happening, in those other 49 states you have data on, that's consistent. Maybe just runaway spending on a certain item that you find
There's
deplorable.
one representative right now in all of Congress that actively probably uses your website, Rand Paul,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we have a very close relationship.
because he does Waste Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I
And
should
they're
sign up for
funny.
it.
It's
Right.
like they train lizards to walk on treadmills.
Right.
And it's like $23 million a year goes for that. It's like something ridiculous.
Right.
Um,
Thanks for letting me know about that. I didn't know
So
it was
he's been
Waste
posting
Wednesday.
memes
Yeah. Right.
on his page,
Yes.
which I mean, young people, millennials, like we love,
Right.
like a Rand Paul.
And we love
Yeah.
Ron.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Right.
Same
Of
thing.
course. Yeah. No, Rand Paul, he's out there, whether it's on Anthony Fauci or whether it's on all these other things, he's leading the charge.
Yeah, and it's
in
very
Congress.
like I don't understand how that's not partisan.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
it's incredible that both sides have voted to train lizards on.
Right. It's not partisan. It's
Yeah.
just,
Ridiculous.
it's about
pork.
honesty.
Yeah.
It's not partisan, it's pork.
Yeah.
But
It's about honesty. If you're an honest Democrat or an honest Republican, you stand against this stuff.
Absolutely.
Right.
So what is something that, besides a very extreme case of lizards on treadmills, anything else that you've been observing that seems to be a bad habit from, what's going on in these 49 states that should be changed? And
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, every month we pop a huge national news story. So in September we found when Joe Biden called the press conference where he announced his vaccine mandate on private companies of 100 or more employees, an arbitrary number, we found the enforcement mechanism of how they plan to enforce that in the Social Infrastructure Act on page 168, where they were going to use the regulatory state, OSHA. They increased the fines by tenfold, up to $700,000 per willful instance. So they want to bankrupt private sector companies that don't follow their edicts. And thank God the federal courts have stepped in to stop this.
So you think that's going in a good direction, and the federal courts will put a stop to this?
We'll put a stop to the mandate itself. Now, the regulatory state tenfold increase in OSHA fines, that started out in the large social human infrastructure bill that couldn't get passed. It's now in the slightly smaller, but still really large social infrastructure bill that the House passed that's actually sitting in the Senate. So now we're only one chamber away from this thing passing.
Oh gosh. That is frightening. So many bad bills are basically that close because, that party that's in power right now has 3 branches. Or 2 branches. House, Senate, and executive branch.
Right.
But very, very interesting stuff. So tell us, there's so much, it's like drinking from a fire hose, right? There's so much for you, for your organization, Open Books to do. What are your objectives for 2022, and what do you hope to accomplish in the next year?
Right. So we want to complete our public spending genome project. With, many people will remember when medicine mapped the human genome and ushered in a new era of medical reforms and technologies. And we think the same thing happens once we post every dime online in real time, which is our mission. We want to complete that project in 2022. It's not enough to open the books. You've got to audit the books. Our audits make national news. Last year we did 42 audits and published them, 42 investigations. This year we'll complete 300. Next year our objective is to do 500 of these audits and publish them. So I encourage everybody to go to our Waste of the Day column at Real Clear,
I love that.
where we publish a daily example of waste, fraud, corruption, and taxpayer abuse.
Great
And it's also syndicated by Sinclair, which is a Fortune 500 broadcast company with 190 ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox affiliates across the country. And so that's our objective in 2022. Hold them accountable.
Yes, and increase kind of the amount of work you're already doing. That's great. So
I have one random question. Have you guys done any audits to track CCP money within government?
very good.
So we highlighted the audit that was done on the CARES Act, Paycheck Protection Program money that went to about 400, if I remember right, companies domestically that were controlled or heavily invested in by the Chinese Communist Party. So this was PPP for the CCP.
Who comes up with the headlines? I mean, those are amazing.
Yeah, it's
Well,
great.
thank you. Yeah, it's all in-house.
That's amazing. I love it because like our generation, we're so everything has to be so buzzy.
Yeah.
Everything has to be a hashtag.
And short, it's
But
Twitter.
you knew where I
Twitter
was
world.
going with that
Oh,
before
yeah.
I completed it.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's great.
It's amazing because I actually know a lot of those companies that got those
Wow.
contracts, and one of them is in Lancaster, in the middle of nowhere. They had no business doing any masks, and suddenly they were the mask producer, and they got that government contract, and that was the whole thing that blew up with what is it, $50 a mask or something like that when you calculated it with Newsom's little deal with the Chinese.
Wow.
I mean, it's amazing. It's
Wow.
just, and this is why California does not want to be transparent.
Right.
California knows that there's too much dirt that's going to get
Well,
dug
they're
up.
acting like they have a lot to hide. Let me tell you. And
Yeah,
they're going to fight this
absolutely.
tooth and nail. And our expectations from this diligent and engaged California Circuit Court judge in Sacramento is that we get a favorable order that starts the process of opening the books. And we fully expect the comptroller to appeal it. But there's an interesting PR twist that won't serve the comptroller well. When you appeal that order, it's a writ of mandamus.
Yes.
It's actually, she's filing suit against the Superior Court judge who has ordered her to open the books. So she's basically suing the judge in appeals court to keep the checkbook hidden. And we at openthebooks.com like the optics of that.
I love it. Well, thank you. Oh, tell us where to find you.
Openthebooks.com.
Okay, very easy. All one word. And Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
You can just get to it all from our website.
Okay,
We have
awesome.
all the links.
Awesome. So we'll check it out. We'll follow all of that and stay in touch with me and keep me posted on Betty Yee and all the other stuff that's coming down the pipeline.
Yep.
Thank you so much. I super appreciate it. Can we get a picture?
Yes.
That
All
was
right.
awesome.
And then I got to get to the airport.
Yeah.
I'm like totally in here.
I know.
That's where we're gonna end up.